that the divine principle by Reverend Moon in the 21st century helps us to understand from the beginning to the end what's going on in our life and what's valuable. Since today's Father's Day, specifically I choose to speak about fathers and the value of fathers and understanding a non-confusion of values. Divine principle is a revelation for the 21st century. It explains that the core value of father comes from God, who is our true Father. So let's go, right? We say that the title of the sermon is Design in the Universe and Father's Day because they're all intertwined. You can't have the universe without fathers, and fathers are what the universe is about, right? So we believe in the creator of the universe. Not many creators, not many gods, the creator, one creator. That's why it's a universe, un from the original Latin and Greek meaning one. There's one story here that we're related to, right? And we believe there is an internal nature of the creator, and that internal nature of the creator is mind. We say the core being of the creator is mind, and it's invisible. The mind of the creator has specific characteristics, one of which is intellect, right? We always obviously can see the creation's made with great mathematical precision to the point beyond human understanding. Number two, it has willpower. The creation always grows. It's always growing, and it's never going to stop growing. And God is always trying to reach you, right? And maybe most importantly to us, love. Because even you have a great intellect, if you don't have love, like Reverend Young said last week, quoting Paul, you're just a clanging cymbal. Nobody wants that. So we say your body expresses what? Your body expresses your mind. Obvious, clear, right? If I'm talking, it's because my mind is thinking to talk or whatever happens, right? And we say it's the same. The universe, the body of the universe expresses God's intellect, laws, will, and love. So just like if I go home and hug my wife and tell her I love her, my body's expressing what's in my mind, right? I love my wife, like that. So same thing with the universe. It expresses God's intellect, laws, will, and love. Intellect, we say, that's why mathematics always describes the universe. If you read about sciences, I don't know if you guys were, I love to read about sciences, ideas, and things like that. It's all about math. Where's Wesley Millar? He's gifted at math. I bet he could tell us a lot of things about that. And we say this mind-body, God-mind-universe is the pattern of all things. All things. For example, in atoms, if we want to know about atoms, we study the laws of physics, actually. They can't really see atoms. They can't really see them, by the way. But they understand by the laws of physics of action and reaction what atoms are about. Same thing with molecules, laws of physics. Same thing with plant biology. Plant biology is actually lawful. If anybody studies Gregor Mendel, the Jesuit monk who discovered what was called chromosomes or DNA and came to understand that plants are governed by laws. Anyhow, I'm not going to talk about him tonight. Animals have instincts. Same thing. Animals' bodies, animals' minds, animals' instincts are governed by laws. And that humans also, we're the apex of creation, have intellect. We can have cold, hard, logical intellect. We can have tremendous willpower that overcomes our cold, hard logic, by the way, many times. And we have love, right? All these things are in us. Where did we get them? We believe all these things come to us from our Creator, God, right? Arno Penzias. Anybody know who he is? Nobel Prize winner, Hebrew brother, right? Nobel Prize winner. He's the one who discovered the evidence for the Big Bang. Anyhow, there's several people involved in that. But Arno Penzias, it gets the Nobel Prize for it. They said, yeah, many people talked about it, saw it, but he's the one who really figured it out, right? He says this: astronomy leads us to a unique event, a universe which was created out of nothing. One with very delicate balance needed to provide exactly the conditions required to permit life, and one which has, these are his words, has an underlying, one might say, supernatural plan. Right? So this is the guy who discovered the Big Bang. He thinks, it's obvious to him, that if you study astronomy, there's a plan. It isn't random, it isn't crazy, it isn't just explosions, it's creation, right? So, that's what we think. We think originally, the original creation, we know exactly there was light, and then there was a quark confinement, protons and electrons which created neutrons, which created hydrogen, which created stars and galaxies, which created our galaxy, which is called the Milky Way galaxy. That's his name, right? You have a name. Our galaxy has a name too, Milky Way, and our solar system. And that it wasn't by accident that these things came about. They're too perfect. And it's obvious when we see the planet, the gravity, the stars, all these different kinds of things, and there's more than 200 specific aspects of our planet that you need to be able to create life. And I'm not going to go over all 200 today. Nevertheless, they exist. So we say that God the Creator of all things, he is an absolute reality, eternally self-existent, transcendent of time and space. So when we see time, time begins with the Big Bang. Before the Big Bang, there's no time. So you can't imagine it, I know. Read Cosmos by Carl Sagan. You can't imagine, or A Brief History of Time by Hawkins. They both talk about that there's no time before then. There's nothing pre-existing that. There's only now and the universe, the beginning of the universe. Anyway, think about it. So we say God is self-existent, transcendent of time and space. Therefore, the fundamental energy of his being must also be absolute and eternally self-existent. So people always ask, what was there before there was a Big Bang? Who created? No, it's just, there's no time before the Big Bang. There's no reference point. Anyhow, we say at the same time, God is a source of the energy which enables all things to maintain their existence. We call this energy universal prime force. So, for example, somehow, some reason, scientists say the Big Bang began, right? Do you know it's still going on? Do you know it didn't stop? The same force that caused the original Big Bang is still in existence, still making everything fly, and it's only a supernatural phenomenon. There's no natural math to be able to explain that. Do you know that? The force that began the creation is still active. Of course, we call that God. Whatever other people call it. Right. So, here's one of the basic ideas from the origin of creation. The electrons experience a force of attraction from both nuclei. The positive, negative attraction holds the two particles together. So, if you have electrons and protons, they're automatically, magnetically, and irresistibly attracted to one another. And we say that same pattern is the same pattern for everything, right? All molecules are attracted to each other. So we say God is a life that multiplies and creates by laws and give and take action. So let's look. So we say in plants, the same thing. Stamen and pistil exist, but don't exist independently. Right? We say like electrons and protons and masculine and feminine plants are irresistibly attracted to one another to create what? It's easy, baby plants, right? But just like electrons are irresistibly attracted to each other to create molecules, atoms, etc., stars and planets, then plants are automatically attracted to each other and irresistibly attracted to each other. Like in Jurassic Park, he says, life somehow finds a way to get together and make more life. So that's the plant kingdom, right? We say the laws of chromosomes are discovered by Friar Gregor Mendel, the Jesuit monk. He figured out that there's absolute laws that govern plant biology. What's that?
Nothing to do but make plants.
Yeah, for a little while he just had nothing to do but be a gardener. And he was super smart, and he wrote down everything he had. And by the way, everything you know about genetics today is the basis of Gregor Mendel. He lived about 100 years ago, in 1905, I think. Amongst animals, it's the same thing, right? Amongst animals, it's the same thing. God is a mind that creates the laws that give and take action to make the animal kingdom. Obvious to us, right? And also, male and female animals are irresistibly attracted to one another to mate. Irresistibly attracted to one another. And that's natural, right? Siapa and I watched a show called Black Wolf on National Geographic. Anybody else saw that?
So nice.
Bob Millar's My Only Hope. Did you see it? It's called Black Wolf. It's about how wolves mate.
It was a really good story.
It's PG rated, so you can watch it. But it's about how desperate wolves are to mate and create pups and then protect their pups. It's really a great story. I suggest you look it up and read it. But anyhow, so they're irresistibly attracted. It's the same word because it's the same meaning, because the universe is one body. And all the bodies, whether they're inorganic or organic, follow the same patterns and rules of give and take action. It's the same thing, right? So whether animals make kittens or pups or cubs or colts, that's an animal kingdom, right? They're irresistibly attracted together to make something, to make a third thing. Same as electrons and protons. When it comes to humans, it's the same thing. When we ask who are we or what are we in the universe, then we follow the same pattern as animals or plants or electrons and protons. It's the same pattern because there's one creator of the universe, right? We say humans are created to be the image of God. We're the apex of creation as far as we know, right? We have all the ability to love, think, and reason about love, more so than animals or plants or other kinds of God's creation. The image of God isn't, and this is really important, the image of God isn't just a man, but it's a man and woman and children. And actually, it's a family. We say the family is the image of God, really. Not just Adam, not just Eve, but it's Adam and Eve and their children living in paradise with God. Right? Remember the movie and the play? The person representing God is just loving Eve or Adam. It should be both Eve or Adam, and just happy being with them, right? Aren't you as parents, aren't you just happy to be with your children? Right? Don't you I just enjoy the time with my kids. Whether we're cooking or eating or building or going to the movies or going to the zoo, we're just happy, right? That's how it's supposed to be between God and humanity. God would just be happy being with you. He'd just be happy watching you eat oranges or other fruits that he made for you. That's all it was supposed to be. So the universe was simply supposed to follow that simple pattern of a parent loving his children. That's all. Okay. We know it didn't happen that easily, right? So we say this is the pattern. God is a life that multiplies, creates by laws of give and take action, and this is a pattern for all things. And we call it, by the way, in divine principle, we call it the four-position foundation. This is important because you should live in a four-position foundation as well. You should live in a four-position foundation as well if you want to function, right? Let's keep going. We say divine principle is a revelation for the 21st century. How come? Because this is the time of revelation when God is pouring out his Spirit on all people that we can understand things, right? Only in the last 100 years do we know anything about electricity. Do we know anything about the weather? Do we know anything about oceans? Do we know anything about space? Do we know just about everything we've discovered happened in the last 100 years. That's all. 1905, 1903, first airplanes flew. 18, anyway, don't get me on dates, but first electric motor was invented by Faraday, et cetera, right? So we think likewise, just as we're learning all the new things about nature, we should also learn about family, and we believe that the divine principle is a revelation that we can understand the value of family in the 21st century and our core value system, what it should be for the most happiness you can gain. Okay. We say we're designed to live in and with a four-position foundation. That's how we're designed to live. And when we follow the designs, right? For example, when we obey the laws of gravity, we live better, don't you? You keep challenging the law of gravity, you're just going to be all bumpy and have bruises all over you. You don't want to challenge the law of gravity. You want to learn to work in relationship with the law of gravity, right? In harmony with the law of gravity. When we discover the law of gravity, what does it do? When we understand the law of gravity, then we understand the universe. We understand planetary motion, space travel, GPS satellites, exploration of other planets, Mars, Jupiter, etc., the sun. We learn all these things when we understand what gravity is. Same thing, when we understand the value of the Creator in our design, we'll live happier, more functional lives. Right. Therefore, there should be easily visible proof, since today's Father's Day, of the value of fatherhood. If we're saying that this four-position foundation, and one of those elements is the father, then, sorry, I went to the wrong slide, then there should be some kind of proof. That's what we're going to discuss today, the value, the proof of the value of fatherhood. Does that make sense? Or what we would say the four-position foundation. We mean mothers too, but since it's Father's Day, we're going to talk about fathers. Okay. We say cars need oil, right? By the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you're driving your car and the oil light comes on, stop it right now. Because you can run out of gas, you can put more gas in it, and it's great. But if your car runs out of oil, it's going to freeze up, and you got about 2 minutes before it freezes up if you're on the freeway. Why is that? Because your car was designed to run on oil. Your car was designed to run on oil, and if you try to run your car without oil, your car is going to break down and freeze up. Because cars were designed to run on oil, right? Okay, so if we talk about God's laws and the four-position foundation, we can say, yes, God's mind is not easily seen to us. God's mind is not easily seen until these last days is becoming more visible, right? Most of the universe is not easily seen, or much of it is visible, but gravity is figured out, right? We use scientists to figure it out mathematically. And because it works, because we believe Newton's laws of gravity because it works, because it's functional, because it functions and allows us to know where we're at with a GPS phone, right? Okay, so why should we study these kinds of things at church? Answer, because you're a product of the creation. If we know about creation, we know about you. You're part of the creation, right? Because God is love and made you to need love. Just like your car needs oil, you need love. You're a part of the universe. To know about you, we need to know about the universe. This is modern science. So, on Father's Day 2017, what does science tell us? Science tells us that fathers, and fatherhood is a necessary building block of the universe. I'll show you. In an article, The Importance of Father Love, History and Contemporary Evidence, right? Why do we believe Newton? Because he presented evidence. So I'm going to present to you evidence by esteemed scientists and their colleagues that fathers are part of the universe. Okay. This was 2001. This is a bit from 2001. December 2001 issue, Review of General Psychology. Roner and Veneziano examined nearly 100 studies of life and death, children, that explore the effect of parenting on children's behavior. The studies published between 1949 and 2001 are some of the few that deal with fathers. Prior to the 1960s and 70s, many behavioral scientists, behavioralism is an aspect of psychology that is dysfunctional. Scientists assumed fathers were relatively unimportant to their children's healthy development, the authors note, right? At the very most, fathers were thought to be peripheral to the job of parenting because children spent most of their time with their mothers. Roner and Veneziano write, some even argue that fathers have no biological aptitude for childcare, though women were said to be genetically endowed for it. Right? Their idea was that all fathers are like Homer Simpson. Exactly. Right? That's Homer's word. Right? Okay. Thinking about things is not science. So when they think fathers have no biological aptitude, that's not science. Right? For example, people thought a 10-pound cannonball falls twice as fast as a 5-pound cannonball until Galileo measured their speeds and realized, your thinking is wrong. It's the same with fathers' biological aptitude to raising children and the necessity of fathers to raising children of true love. Right? Watch. Okay. This is the source here for this next one. You can read this. It really comes from Birth, Infant Death Data Set, National Vital Statistics Report, National Center for Health Statistics 2000. You know what it says? Watch this. It says this, father factor. And the reason I put things on here, so you can study, you can see if I'm telling you the truth. Is this real evidence or not? Father factor, infants and early childhood. Look at this. Infant mortality rates are 180% times higher for infants of unmarried mothers than for married mothers. That means if a mother, if there's no father around, 180%, almost 200% more children die at childbirth or shortly after than children who have fathers with them. Isn't that pretty amazing? That's a really pretty amazing statistic when you think about it. Just the presence of a father. When you go into it, you'll see it's not just the presence. It's the aspects that fathers bring to child rearing and to mothers change everything. See, so you can see, just from that one statistic, you realize fathers are very important for the life of the child. But it gets better, right? Pediatrics, June 2016, from the American Academy of Pediatrics, clinical report, right? Fathers' roles in the care and development of their children, the role of pediatricians. I did this one, the last one was from 2001, so you might think it's bogus. This is 2016, okay? So it says, by Michael Yogman, Craig F. Garfield, the Committee on Psychosocial Aspects of Child and Family Health. So here, the idea is just how do we have better child and family health? You know what their result is? Get fathers to be more involved. Watch. Okay, the involvement of fathers has important consequences for child well-being, especially with regard to issues of diet, nutrition, exercise, play, and parenting behaviors. For example, reading and discipline. Okay, so all these scientists study all these studies. What happens to kids? Parents are not there, parents are there, fathers are there, fathers are not there. And here's what they came to the conclusion of, that fathers are very, very important, right? He says the purpose of this report, therefore, is to update data on fathers' roles and to highlight the latest multidisciplinary findings related to fathers, children, and pediatrics. When possible, whenever possible, programs that are particularly innovative in supporting father involvement in children's health are highlighted as examples of approaches to family-friendly pediatric care. So what did they discover? If you're a pediatrician and you want the child to be healthy, you need to get the father involved. Whatever programs you do that involve the father, it's going to be better for the children. Okay, comparing, and this was a different study altogether. This didn't have anything to do with those guys. We'll go back to that in a second, but I thought this is very interesting. Comparing 1965 with 2011, fathers more than doubled their time spent on housework. Wow. Right, fathers? God bless you. 4 hours, 10 hours a week now, 4 hours 10, and childcare, 7 hours a week now as opposed to 2.5 hours in 1965. You know what they discovered? Researchers point to this increase as evidence of a subgroup of new fathers. This is the new father paradigm, where fathers are greatly involved with their children, spend much more time with their children than before. New fathers who appear to preserve time with children, likely by cutting back on or incorporating their children into their leisure time, especially on weekends. Okay, now we're going to go back to the study. Okay, prenatal involvement and residence at birth. That means if the husband or father is living with the mother or wife, right, we're strongest predictors of paternal involvement by the time a child reaches 5 years old. So that is, if you get married, you love each other, you decide to have a child, and the father and mother together decide to have a child, and the father's living with the mother, that's the best case scenario for the child 5 years from now. Okay? Father involvement during pregnancy correlated with mothers being 1.5 times more likely to receive first trimester prenatal care. Who would have thought that? It's the fathers who urge their wives to get prenatal care, or maybe they pay for the bills, or however it works. The husbands cause 1.5 times, or 150% or 3 times as likely with reductions in prematurity and infant mortality. So just having a husband and father living with the mother together cause reductions in prematurity and infant mortality. That's pretty good, right? So the old idea or thoughts that fathers didn't contribute is a complete 100% mistake. In a study comparing father skin-to-skin care with conventional cot care, during the first 2 hours after birth, newborn infants in the father skin-to-skin group cried less, became drowsy sooner, and had less rooting, sucking, and wakefulness. You know what that means? That means while the mother's resting after giving birth, the father's holding the baby instead of baby being alone in a crib. Right? Just having the father hold the baby at birth is better for the baby. The baby is already beginning to relax, feel loved, feel support, and all those kinds of experiences. That's great, right? During infancy, fathers have been shown to be competent and capable of similar successful interactions with young infants and to have similar psychological experiences as mothers. So you used to think fathers didn't need to be, but now they're discovering that fathers and mothers have very similar emotional bonds to children, right? Took 6,000 years to figure this out for the scientific community. Jesus taught us this 2,000 years ago, right? However, their relationship is not redundant. That means they have a different complementary relationship. The father is more likely to be the infant's play partner than the mother. There's nothing wrong with fathers playing with their kids, by the way, and it's actually very important for child's growth. Father's play tends to be more stimulating, vigorous, and arousing for the infant. Fathers were equally successful in matching emotions with their children. During social interactions, fathers are able to synchronize arousal rhythms with their infants just as successfully as mothers. That means fathers who hear the baby cry, they get up just the same. They feel the same anxiety, right? But, and this is really important, the quality of interactions, especially play, was more intense with fathers. So what does that mean? It means these high-intensity interactions with fathers may encourage children's exploration and independence, whereas the less intensive interactions with mothers provide safety and balance. So two different kinds of life elements that children receive from fathers and mothers. One's complementary to the other. Mother provides safety and balance, exactly what the divine principle explained 55 years ago. And fathers offer children adventure, courage, excitement to go out and see the world. Father involvement in the early childhood years is associated with positive child development and psychological outcomes over time. Listen to this one. For example, at 3 years of age, father-child communication was a significant and unique predictor of advanced language development in the child. Significant and unique. Fathers are the only people able to give their children this benefit, right? But mother-child communication was not. Why is that? Nothing wrong with mothers, don't worry. Despite this finding, infants from birth to 7 months of age were exposed to significantly more language from mothers compared with fathers. However, mothers tailor word choice to the child's known vocabulary, whereas fathers are more likely to introduce new words. Right? Child health care providers have an opportunity to encourage fathers to speak to their infants more. So if you want your child to have a better vocabulary, let dad take care of them. Teach them new words. I'm not going to suggest what those words might be. Nevertheless, new words. In a prospective study, when fathers were more involved, that is, caring, playing, communicating infancy, children had decreased mental health symptomology at 9 years of age. Right? So just fathers playing with the kids means children have less emotional or psychological problems at 9 just because dad plays with them. We understand the value of fathers in playing and being with children. It helps them stay sane, right? Fathers engaged in more roughhouse play, and their involvement in play with preschoolers predicted decreased externalization and internalizing behavior problems and enhanced social competence. So because fathers play and rough around and roll with them and tell them, don't do that, do this, don't do that, because they do that, then children learn how to play with others. This is really, really, really important for your children to learn how to play. So we say fathers, so we say this 4-position foundation, creating beautiful children. If you looked at the black wolf, alpha males, and the relationship with wolves, you would realize that alpha male wolves are absolutely important for the success of the family. We should understand it's the same thing with human beings. It's the very same thing with human beings. In order for us to create great families, we need the alpha male father figure in the household. Okay. In a nationally representative household sample, positive father involvement was inversely associated with child behavior trajectories, such that more involvement was accompanied by less child maladaptive behavior. Does that make sense? The more the father was involved, the more sane the child becomes, the more good behavior the child expresses. Furthermore, the influence of maternal depressive symptoms on child problem behaviors vary by the level of the father's positive involvement. That is, mothers tend to be depressed, or you could use whatever words you want. Fathers tend to overcome that. God bless them. This information suggests that the influence of involved fathers may compensate for the negative influence of maternal depression. That is, reduced responsiveness to child's socio-emotional needs. thereby reducing the risk of child problem behaviors and development. That's why fathers are there, to play. When mother's tired or worn out and just not ready, fathers are there to play. And fathers need to play with their children. It's so important. You need to interact, read them stories, read them books, play games, invent games, make new words. The Importance of Father Love, History and Contemporary Evidence, published on December 2001 issue of Review of General Psychology. Okay, this is from the first study. Studies in the third group claim there's a stronger link between father love and certain outcomes such as delinquency and psychological health and well-being than between mother love and those outcomes. Now this is really important. When there's a strong bond of love between fathers and sons, children have less problems with delinquency. If children don't have strong bonds of love with their fathers but love their mothers, they still have problems with delinquency. Fathers are unique in that capability of helping the children to be good citizens. According to the fourth set of studies, father love is a sole significant predictor of specific outcomes in the broad categories of personality and psychological adjustment problems, conduct and delinquency problems, and substance abuse. Did you read that? Fathers are the sole significant factor. That's why we say, when we talk about the image of God, the image of family, father must be there. The father must be there. According to the fourth set of studies, father love is, so let's read it again. According to the fourth set of studies, father love is the sole significant predictor of specific outcomes in the broad categories of personality and psychological adjustment problems, conduct and delinquency problems, and substance abuse. You know, there's people, for example, if you read Dr. Carson's life story, his father abandoned him, and he was raised by his mother. But really what saved him was Jesus Christ, by the way, the ideal father figure. So I'm not telling you if your father is gone or not here or that you're bound to be crazy or a delinquent, right? That's not the point. The point is that fathers really help to overcome those kinds of things when they're available. For example, look, this is an important example to our church community. When the father is an active believer, this isn't from those groups, this is just from a Christian page. When father is an active believer, there's about a 75% likelihood that the children will also become active believers. Did you know that? But if only the mother is a believer, this likelihood is dramatically reduced to about 15%. Isn't that interesting? Mother likes to go to church, mother loves church, 15% of her kids will like church. But if father likes church and father goes to church, 75% of those kids will go to church. Interesting statistic, isn't it? We should be aware of it, I think. So, what does it mean? Right? We can see between electrons and protons are designed to attract one another. This creates atoms and the universe. We are designed to live in the four-position foundation. We are designed to be a parent, to be a husband, to be a wife, to receive love as a child of a parent. You are designed to give love and receive love in this fashion. So this should be a values clarification of who we are and what we're doing with our blessed families and blessed couples. What are we trying to accomplish, right? If you read the book, the Ring trilogy, right? You're reading the Ring trilogy, right? And you read, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Yeah. If you read the first book, after the first book, it looks really dark, right? Mm-hmm. If you read the second book looks even worse, right? At the end of the second book, they're all going to die, and everything's bad, and everyone's lost, and Gandalf is gone. If you get to the 7/8 of the third book, all the what do they call those creatures? Orcs. All the orcs are coming, and there's monsters, and the ring waves are destroying them, and they're down to one little fortress at Gondar. But if you read the last 1/8 of the stories of the three books, everything changes. Life becomes good. The king returns, and actually that's an allegory to Jesus returning, and the good guys win. Samwise is the only guy with hope. Samwise is the only guy in hope. At 7/8, all the books are finished. The only one with hope left is Samwise, right? He's so faithful, but he changes everything. I'm telling you, I'm not sure what chapter we're in, but we're not in the last 1/8 of the book of our lives. Okay? We're not in the last 1/8. That doesn't mean we should give up hope just because we're not in the last 1/8. The whole story is about how terrible it is and how the orcs win and how Gandalf is killed and how the monsters win and how all those things happen, right? And the fellowship disappears and Boromir betrays the group. The whole story is about betrayal and crime and death. But in the last 1/8, everything changes. I'm telling you as Unification Church members, wait for the last 1/8 of the book before you give hope. Wait till we're in that very, very last chapter of the return of the King, and you're going to be okay. Just don't give up hope and keep loving, right? So that's us, right? So Father's Day, we proclaim that God is our true Father. We proclaim that God is our true Father, that Jesus' title is Eternal Father from Isaiah 9:6, and that we are reborn as sons and daughters of God through Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit, and that Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit have given the authority to Reverend Mrs. Moon to bless humanity with forgiveness and rebirth as new families in the last days. We haven't seen the last 1/8 of the book yet. We're only beginning. We're only in the first pages of the last 1/8 of the book, the positive side of the book. So don't give up. Don't give up and don't worry. Just keep loving. The only thing you can do is to continue to love, continue to believe, continue to be faithful. We say Jesus' title is Eternal Father in the Christian culture sphere built up an image of good fathers throughout human history. It was thrown out in the 50s and 60s by those behavioralists who thought fathers were useless, right? They only thought it. There was no evidence of that. And all the evidence I just gave you proves fathers are absolutely essential for the well-being of the family and the well-being of civilization, right? This is from Mark 10:13. This is why Christianity is way ahead of psychology. And they were bringing children to him so that he might touch them, meaning Jesus, but the disciples rebuked them. But when Jesus saw this, he was indignant and said to them, "Permit the children to come to me." What's Jesus' title? Eternal Father, right? That's one of his 4 main titles, Eternal Father. So when he sees little children, what does he do? He said, "I don't care if I'm tired. I don't care. Let the children come to me. Permit the children to come to me. Do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. Truly I say to you, whoever does not receive the kingdom of God like a child will not enter it at all." And he took them in his arms. This is Jesus, right? This is the story of Christianity. And he takes them into his arms, hugs them, kisses them, blesses them, heals them, and then sends them on their way. And laying his hands on them and touching them. And the idea of the Father is he loves his children with a skin-touch relationship. That's what this story means, right? This is the example to all fathers how you greet your children. When your children come to you, this is how fathers are supposed to greet their children, right? Also, and they were filled with the Holy Spirit, right? Here is a trustworthy saying. This is from the book of Timothy. Whoever aspires to be a bishop desires a noble task. Now the overseer is to be above reproach, faithful to his wife. Men, we should be faithful to our wives. That's the beginning of a family. Faithfulness, temperate, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, not given to drunkenness, right? So this is why our church is a dry church, by the way. This is one of the main reasons. Alcohol and raising kids don't go together, right? If your kids were at school in 1st grade and the teacher was knocking back a beer or taking a glass of wine during recess, would you think that's a good teacher? No, it's actually probably illegal and a crime. How about it, then is it okay for a parent to knock back a cold one while they're raising their kids? I think not. It would be the same rules, wouldn't it? Anyhow, not given to drunkenness, not violent. We don't believe in beating children, right? Not violent, but gentle. Not quarrelsome, not a lover of money. What else? He must manage his own family well and see that his children obey him, that he must do so in a manner worthy of full respect. If anyone does not know how to manage his own family, how can he take care of God's church? He must also have a good reputation with outsiders so that he will not fall into disgrace and into the devil's trap. Now, before we go further, Jesus also gives the story of the prodigal son, right? That is a father who loves his children, is a farmer, is a wealthy farmer who loves his kids, and the prodigal son rebels and goes away anyhow. I'm not telling you that there's no such story as the prodigal son. Jesus said, look, could be a prodigal son story here. So don't just think it's all could be tough, but what happens? Parent continues to love his child until the child comes home. That's our lesson. We continue to love our children until our children come home. That's the goal. Okay. Here's a book that I strongly suggest. If you want to know how to be a good parent and raise wonderful children, here's a book that's been a great inspiration to me by a woman called Blessing an Ideal Family. What's it mean? What's our goals? What are we trying to accomplish? Right? Also, here's another one. Ephesians. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Fathers, do you exasperate your children? Fathers, don't do that. Stop it. However, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. So what's the word training here mean? Anybody know? I'll tell you. It means training as in training a grapevine, because they were farmers and gardeners, right? When you train a grapevine, how do you train? That's how we train our children up. For example, you don't punish a grapevine until it gives better fruit, right? You don't beat it. You don't hit it. If you want the grapevine to give better fruit, you're kinder to it. You're nicer to it. You give it better fertilizer. You give it more water. You do something like that. But hitting it doesn't help the grapevine give more fruit, right? I think we can all agree that's not how you train children or grapevines. So here's another one. This is an attachment parenting book. Attachment parenting is also called natural parenting, based on parents and children's natural need for love. Now this is by Dr. William Sears, who he and his wife are pediatricians. They removed their pediatric service when their first child was born to their house so they could be with their children all the time. This comes from John Bowlby, and John Bowlby's understanding that children need love. So they raise 8 children on their own. They have 8 children. They love kids, and they constantly are teaching about this ideas. If you want to read about how to really bond with your children from the beginning, especially new young couples and people who may be grandparents in the near future or far future, this is really an ideal book to read. This is really an ideal book. And by the way, the ideas of bonding and attachment go on forever. It doesn't stop when they're little. When they're little, it's easier because they'll go in the car with you and go anywhere you want. But when they're bigger, they don't do that. But it's really a great foundation. Also, here's a story about attachment parenting, right? Just a story. Charles Francis Adams, a 19th century political figure and diplomat, kept a diary. One day he entered, "Went fishing with my son today. A day wasted." Right? He's a big diplomat, thought it was a waste of time. Okay. His son, Brooke Adams, also kept a diary, which is still in existence. On that same day, Brooke Adams made this entry: "Went fishing with my father, the most wonderful day of my life." Different perspective. Attachment, to be together for children is valuable and precious. Don't think you're wasting time. Watch cartoons. I used to watch cartoons with the kids. Dragon Ball Z or any cartoon they liked. We would make up games. Anyhow, be with your kids. Devote time to your kids. Talk to your kids. Tell them about things. And let them learn from that. They'll like that. The father thought he was wasting his time while fishing with his son, but his son saw it as an investment of time. Anyhow, he's who made the quote. Here's another one. Children need love in the form of borders. By the way, love doesn't mean just letting your kids do anything they want. That's a mistake. It's a mistake from the 1950s, right? This is from Dr. James Dobson. He raised several kids of his own. He's a child psychologist and wrote Dare to Discipline. Now, I love this book because it explains, like we said, we're trying to figure out how to raise your kids, right? This is 20th century understanding that children need to have borders. He doesn't believe in corporal punishment, really. Children with too strict borders do not do well either, and oftentimes rebel with too strict parents. With not strict parents at all, children get lost. So you have to find, what do they call it, the Goldilocks principle of discipline. You have to one that's just right. Not too hot, not too cold. You got to find the one that's just right with your child, because each child is different. And he talks about different children. Some children he calls them the strong-willed child who is just going to rebel at anything. You tell him don't cross the street, he's going to cross the street. You tell him eat your food, he's not going to eat his food. There's other kids who do everything you want them to do. Automatically, yes, Dad, sure, Mom, you want me to do this? Sure, I'll eat broccoli or whatever. Anyhow, so it gives you different ideas about how to discipline different types of character personalities in children. And he says, yes, will your children question your authority? Yes, because they're looking to see if you really love them and enforce your rule to protect them. They're looking for enforcement. That's why they challenge you sometimes. Anyway, you should read the whole book and then figure out how to take care of your kids. Who is this sermon for? I believe first gen. Hopefully you'll become wonderful parents and the greatest grandparents ever. That's your goal for first generation, to become the greatest grandparents who ever walked the face of the earth. 21st century grandparents. Okay? Reverend Mrs. Moon, bring by the authority of Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit the marriage blessing ceremony, divine principle and the truth of 3-generation families. Reverend Moon said it's not over till the 3rd generation. No matter how you are with your own children, it's not over till the 3rd generation. Keep fighting. Keep loving. Witnessing to your friends, tribe, etc. to teach them the theories of love and spiritual development. That's important for all our communities. It's for your tribe. Right? Use this information for your tribe. To young adults, especially second gen, someday you may, God willing, have children of your own. And you can grow children and become one with God. This is absolutely valuable. This is the purpose of your creation. Purpose of your life. The most important fundamental building block of your life. Father's Day is about fathers, right? It's about the man who chooses of his own free will to remain loyal to one wife, who chooses to abstain from drugs and alcohol, who chooses to be a good parent, who chooses gentleness, who chooses to sacrifice his life for the sake of his family. I always say I sacrificed my body to raise my children. I used to be young and slim. Now I'm old and fat. Happy Father's Day. The greatest gift I ever had came from God. I call him Dad. Amen. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you like that.